Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Are you a Power BI developer and you are tasked to create some reports on top of your Business Central? Let's say your manager asked you to create some reports on top of your sales data from Business Central to provide some insights around your sales, your gross profit, your gross margin, etc. etc. If that sounds like you, today's video is for you. Hi, my name is Sohail Bakhshi, a Microsoft Data Platform MVP from biinsight.com. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a very insightful report on top of your Business Central for sales. To be able to show something that you see on the screen now, I have created a report for executives, executive trends and risks, sales performance, customer insights, product and category analysis, and growth. And you can create a whole lot of other insightful reports on top of your data that sits in your Business Central. I will start from scratch by connecting to a Business Central and then using the APIs. If you have some Business Central knowledge, you know that Business Central provides a whole lot of different APIs that expose the data in many different ways. A key message here in today's video is that we really need to understand the Business Central data schema. If we do not know what tables to pick, what filters put in, how to create relationships, then we cannot create any reports in Power BI. Let's face it, at the end of the day, the data modeling is the key part of Power BI and any other model-driven BI tools. So a big shout out to Tharanga, my fellow business applications MVP, who helped me creating the data model. Without his help, I wouldn't be able to create any reports or any data models on top of Business Central. So with all that out of the way, let's begin. Okay, I have opened a new session of Power BI Desktop. The first step is to connect to my Business Central. To do so, I click on the Get Data button and then I search for Business Central. There you go. I select Business Central and then I click Connect. At this point, if you have connected to a Business Central instance before, you will be automatically connected. Otherwise, you have to pass your credentials and then access the environment. The next step is to select our correct environment. So I go to Sandbox Div and I expand course NZ. And for this specific exercise, we will use the standard APIs. So I click on the standard APIs v2 to expand the tables. As you can see, there are a whole lot of different tables available here. As I stated before, you either need to understand the data schema of Business Central. If you don't, I would strongly advise to search it over the internet or just simply contact one of your D365 Business Central experts to guide you on how these tables are related. As I stated before, I was lucky to have Tharanga, who is a Microsoft Business Applications MVP, and also shout out to Manmohan Bhatt, who is expert in Business Central, who knows the data schema inside out. So if you have someone like these people to help you with the data model, then I would strongly advise to ask them. Otherwise, you perhaps can use Copilot or ChatGPT or whatnot to identify the tables that you will require. Just keep in mind that the API that you are connecting to is important because not all data are exposed to all of these APIs. But for our today's example, I will go ahead and select some of the tables that I already know that I require. The first one is the customer table. I just scroll down and find that. So that is the customers table. The second table is items. And I also will need item ledger entries. This is actually the one that keeps all the sales and purchase data. I will show you how to just trim it down to get the sales data. I will also need to get the item categories And that's pretty much it. With these 4 tables, we can gain a whole lot of insights. So let's go ahead and click Transform Data. This will open Power Query Editor. And from there, we can rename columns, change the data type, we can cleanse the data. For example, as you see, we have display name on almost all of these tables. On item categories, we also have display name, which are not really helpful. So I just go ahead and rename these ones into more user-friendly column name. It is best practice to always remove the unnecessary columns. As you can see in the customers table, I have 38 columns and only 5 rows. Do I really need those 38 columns? Let me scroll to the right. For example, the ID column, which is a GUID, is not necessary. It is not contributing in any relationships or whatnot. So I can go ahead and remove all of the unnecessary columns. One tip that I can quickly show you is, instead of removing columns by pressing Ctrl and selecting columns that we do not want and right clicking and removing these columns, instead of doing that, I can click on the Choose Columns option on the ribbon and untick the columns that I do not require in my table. And I just go ahead and unselect whatever is not necessary here. And then I click OK. There you go. I have only a couple of columns left. And I do the same for item category. For example, in the item categories table, I do not need the ID, last modified date, and tag is already null. So I don't need those ones. So I remove those ones as well. And I do the same in the other tables. And here are the columns that are important to have in the item ledger entries. Now, here's the important point. If we want to look at the sales data only, we have to filter the entry type to show only the sales values. So I just do it again. I click on the drop down on the filter to put a filter on this query. I unselect the select all and I only keep the sales data and I click OK. That will apply a filter on top of the item ledger entries. I do not rename these tables for now, but you may want to rename those tables to a more user-friendly version. Another best practice is to never leave a column with any data type in your tables. In this column that you can see, ABC123 is the any data type in Power Query. Now let me show you another tip. While we can click on the data type part of the column header to change the data type, when we have many columns, it can be cumbersome. What we can do is to click on the Transform tab and select the Detect Data Types. It will go ahead and auto detect the data types based on the data source that we are connected to or the data that is shown in Power Query. It is not perfect, but it is something worthwhile to know about. For now, I just go ahead and change the data type to text. On the other tables, look at the columns. So that is text. That one is also text. Let's have a look at items to see if we have any columns with any data type. Yep, there you go. Type is of any data type. It is obviously text, so I just change it to text. Customers. Let's see, we do not have any columns that has any data types. Now it's time to load this data into the data model. To do that, I click on the home button and then I click close and apply. What happens here is that Power Query connects to the data source, which in this case is Business Central, and flows the data through all of these applied steps, which are our transformation steps, and then loads the cleansed data into the data model. So let's go ahead and click close and apply. There you go. Now we have all the tables loaded. To see the actual data that is loaded into our data model, I can click on the table view. Let's look at item. That looks good. The next step is to create the relationship between these tables. The item ledger entry is our fact table. I assume you know what fact table and dimension tables are. I assume that you are familiar with the star schema and dimensional data modeling. If you are not, you can find a lot of valuable resources available online, or you can purchase a copy of my book, Expert Data Modeling with Power BI. So let's move these a little bit around. So there is a relationship between item categories and items, that is between code column from the item category and item category code. There are multiple options to create a relationship between two tables. For now, I stick to the drag and drop. I click a column from a table and I drag it over the other table and on the column that I want to create the relationship, and I release it. There you go. It opens the new relationship window. I just look at the columns that are selected for this relationship, which are correct, and I click save. And that creates a relationship between item categories and items table. And the relationship between item ledger entries and items is between item number and number column from items. So I select that and click save. And the relationship between item ledger entries and customer is between source number from item ledger entries and number from customers. So I just drag that and drop it over here and I click save. While I am in the model view, you can see that those relationships are created here under the model tab. If you go to the model tab, you can expand the relationships and you can see the relationship over here. And here's a pro tip. In dimensional modeling, we almost always need to have a date table. The reason to have a date table is to add as many columns as we require to analyze the data across different date attributes, something like across year or year and month or across quarter or whatnot. We already know that there is a date table available in Business Central. You are more than welcome to go ahead and use that one. But for this specific example, I'm not going to use that date table. The reason being is that the amount of data in that date table is really large, while I do not need to have that large date table, which will bloat my data model. There are some nuances around creating a date table. It is best practice to keep the date table starting from the 1st of January of a starting date in the past all the way to the 31st of December of a date in the future. There are also multiple ways to create a date table. We can create the date table within the data model using some DAX expressions and create a calculated table, or we can generate the date table within Power Query. In this specific example, I create the date table within the Power Query. So I go back to Power Query by clicking on the Home tab and then click Transform Data again. I have the code available here, so I go ahead and copy and paste the code. But before copying and pasting the code, I have to create an empty query. So I right click on the queries pane, and under the new query, I create a blank query and I change the name to date and select the advanced editor to paste the code. So I copied the code from the other window that I had opened and I paste it over here. I am using the 1st of January 2023 as the starting date and 31st of December 2025 as the end date, because I know that the data that I have loaded into my data model is within that time frame. So there is no need to go with a very large date table. So I click done. There you go. We have all the necessary columns for this particular example. Now I click close and apply again, add my date table into the data model. The next step is to create the relationship between the date table and my item ledger entries. So I just move the date table to the middle. I click and drag the posting date to the date column on the date table to create the relationship between those two. Just be aware that the data types must be the same for the columns contributing into a relationship. So for now, I go ahead and click save, but I quickly double check the data type of all the columns that are contributing into relationship by selecting the column and looking at the data type from the properties pane. So that is date. On the other side, that is also date, and this relationship number is text, and the related one is source number. Source number is also text. Between those two, number item is also text, and number from item is text, and between those two, that is text, and code is also text. There you go. We have completed our data model. Now that I have created all of the required relationships, it is time to go ahead and create some measures. To do so, I have a couple of options. Depending on which view we are at, we can create a measure. I am in the model view, and to create a measure while we are in a model view, we just need to select the table and then either click on the new measure from the ribbon or right click on that table and select the new measure. Now I start typing in the measure name, which is total sales amount equals sum of sales amount actual. So I right click on the table and create a new measure called total cost amount equals sum cost amount actual. I have a parenthesis and I press enter. If you already have the definition of these measures, we really don't need to go and create all of these measures one by one. The pro tip here is to go on the DAX query view. Let me just copy the definition of all those measures and paste it over here. And at the last line, I can say evaluate 1. As you can see, it detects that there are 50 measures added over here. So I go ahead and click update model with the changes. Then I confirm it and it goes ahead and create all of those measures for me. There are a couple of measures that has some issues that I can fix. Those ones could be these measures are referring to a column that does not exist. So I go to the model view again and look at that one. That's pretty much it. So from the item ledger entries, the document number is something that I have removed apparently. Document type is also removed. So I know that document type from item ledger entries and document number. Let's go back to our query and add those columns back to the data model to keep those measures working. To do so, I click on the item ledger entries. I find the transformation step that we removed the columns. So I click on the gear. It was document type and document number. I click OK. I have to click close and apply to add those columns back into my data model. So hopefully it fixed some of the measures issues. Yes. So let's see what is the other issue. So balance due column from customers is also missing, and credit limit from customers table is also missing. So I go ahead and bring those columns back again, transform data, and from the customers, I find the step that we remove the columns and I keep them back. Now I have to reload the data into the data model. There you go. So now all of those measures are created and they work properly. I will include the definition of all the measures available in data model into my GitHub repo. You can find it in the description down below. Now that we have created all of our measures and our data model is ready, it is time to create data visualization. Let me bring back the working example that I already have. So I'll put it over here. I have to confess that I did not create these report pages on my own. I have used Fabric Copilot to generate these reports for me. Obviously, I have polished these report pages a little bit to fit the purpose, but you know, Copilot is really great in creating these reports and it is a massive time saver. So I have created all of these different report pages just asking Copilot to do it for me. But again, obviously something like changing those colors is something that I have manually done. Let's go ahead and create at least one report page using Copilot, and I use the exact same prompt that I used. I'm not too sure if it gives me exact same results, but let's see what happens. So I just open Copilot on Power BI desktop. I'll just paste the prompt over here. It is a very detailed prompt saying, including page title, that all the measures that must be used in this report page. Let's go ahead and run this prompt to see how Copilot works in here. There you go. So it is sort of close, but not exactly what we wanted. But yeah, you know, the executive overview and the title and some of these cards on top are pretty much the same. Maybe we have to tweak our prompt a little bit, but I'm not going to make this video any longer. I'll leave it with you guys to go and have a look and use Copilot and Power BI to create your fantastic Business Central reports. Okay, that's pretty much it. Just a quick wrap up. We have connected to Business Central instance via the APIs, and we picked the required tables. And from those required tables, we only picked the required columns. We also put some filters to get the sales data only. We have built the data model, and on top of that, we created the required measures. After that, we have used Copilot to generate some reports for us, and we modified those reports to fit the requirements. In my working example of Power BI, I have created a lot of measures that I put in my GitHub repo. Make sure to check it out, download it, modify it, and make it work for your use cases. If you like the content that I create for you, you know what to do. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching, and catch you in the next one.